Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we are on a really tight DV budget to make this happen. I have no idea how successful we will actually be here, but let's go ahead and warp forward to In Space High because we know that we still need some materials study. So let's go ahead and grab our materials study as soon as this time warp is over. We'll keep that experiment and we will go ahead and collect that. And then Bob will need to EVA in order to reset this. That is fine. He can absolutely do that. Come on over here, Bob. You're going a little bit fast there, dude. There we go. We'll restore the Science Junior, and we will just make our way on back here. This is awkward, to be sure. Okay, this angle is easier to see. Fantastic. We'll go ahead and board. Excellent. Okay, so in theory, we have ourselves this periapsis. We're going to go ahead and it would be more efficient if this encounter was at the apoapsis, but I didn't fine-tune it quite that much. We're going to warp ahead a little further here. And let's just see what this ends up looking like. Also, hypothetically, what happens if we remove this? Which that was needed to be tuned a little bit. What happens if we remove this and at the apoapsis do a little bit of a radial? Okay, I was just wondering what that would end up looking like. Not great is the answer. So we'll go ahead and warp up to the apoapsis. About like that. And now we don't appear to have an encounter. Okay. Now we do. Where did our encounter go there? We're in space high over Kerbin right now, but this should have given us a slight encounter. Retrograde wouldn't be useful here. It would absolutely have to be radial, wouldn't it? But that uses up a lot of DV. That's 60 meters per second that we were not planning to use. Plus an additional 120 here, or rather 160, 150. That puts it even tighter. We should have used extra DV down here. That's the takeaway there. Okay, I mean, this is not great. Now, if we were to do this slightly later, what would happen then? The answer is... No, this is more DV. I wanted less DV. The answer is that this would end up being... still about 150 DV. So I think that probably means that our answer is that we're going to need a rescue mission. Now, we already knew that that was probably going to be the case, but this floating point error actually hurt us pretty dramatically. Like, that's just a, game bug, right? Well, it's not really a bug. It's intentional behavior, but floating point inaccuracy, you know? What are you going to do? Not too much that you can do about that other than just accept it. Realize we should have burned the extra 3 DV down here rather than the 60 up here. And be like, I mean... we're going to have like 50 DV to get home on. Okay. We'll go ahead and warp to next maneuver. This is going to be tight, but we knew it was going to be incredibly tight. Didn't know it was going to be this incredibly tight. But okay, we'll accept it, and we'll probably just have to do a rescue flight. So this is going to be a 4-second burn. We'll just get positioned at the radial node, and we will warp on forward. Good old floating point errors. Okay, so let's get this adjustment made. T-2. There we go. I'm going to save that extra DV. Okay, and then here we're going to tune this to be as minimal as possible, but we're going to manually do that, so that'll be fine. Now, we are currently in a flyby of the moon, which should have completed this, but we need to bring him back, I believe, first. So this would be an orbital spacewalk that has to happen. We're still technically in space high over Kerbin, which is interesting. We're going to go ahead and warp here, though. Okay, there we go. Now we're actually in orbit, or not in orbit, but we're actually flying by the moon. Excellent. So there's that done. We're going to grab our mystery goo observation and our materials study. And this is the only in-space high science that we are, of course, going to get here, but we will go ahead and collect all. We'll have Bob EVA. This is not going to count as our orbital spacewalk because we're not in orbit, but we're going to let go here, and we're going to have him come on over this way. And something like this, we will go ahead and restore the Science Junior, and we will open the service bay. And we will also restore the Mystery Goo Containment Unit and close the service bay, and then we'll go right back in. I believe we have to go down to the bottom here. There we go. Excellent. So there's that. Next up, we can't grab these again unless we wanted to save them, and actually we're never going to go into in-space low, so we are going to grab these again, but we won't need any more, so we won't have to reset this. We won't have anywhere to store it, unless we can store it in the capsule, I suppose. Ah, we're going to have Bob EVA here, again, and he's going to let go. Now, you'll notice I did not grab the science there, but what we can do here is not this. There we go. What we can do here is we can collect this data and then restore this again. And then we can open this up again. We can collect the data and restore this. Close the service bay again. And in we go. That was not in. Come on, Bob. Bob, come on. There we go. Excellent. And then we can grab this one final time. Because we're storing those in, I believe, the capsule here. Yeah, we have that data stored in the capsule, and then we have the data stored here as well. So that's wonderful. Next up, of course, we're going to want to position retrograde, or thereabouts. And we're going to advance to this next maneuver. Now, we've got very little DV left. This is going to use almost all of it. That's okay. We know that this is going to be very, very tight. I'm going to close these doors. And we're going to get into orbit and then evaluate options. That is quite a dark spot on the on Kerbin there. I guess that is an eclipse going on. Cool. Okay, so we're going to move forward to T-minus 5 seconds here. And we will burn this right about now. And then we'll stop this burn the moment we're in orbit. Okay, I'm going to slow this down. Very soon now. Any DV savings that we can save, we will. There we go. We saved 0.1 DV there. Perfect. Okay, so that gets us our contract parameter complete to explore the moon, as well as fly by the moon and enter orbit of the moon. Now we need to return Sanzor safely. We have 43 meters per second to get back with. This is not going to go great. This is really not going to go great. I'll do some experimentation to see how close we can get. It's not going to be super great. Or rather, super close, specifically. We do, however, still need to do an orbital spacewalk, and so we'll just have... We can't have Sanzor do the EVA, but we can have Jeb do the EVA. So there's the orbital spacewalk. That completes that and gets us a good amount of cash. If only we could funnel that cash into additional fuel in this stage, eh? Okay, so let's take a quick look here at what this would look like if we burned all of our remaining DV prograde at the periapsis. This would actually get us an escape from the Kerbin system. Okay. What if we burned it at the apoapsis? We can actually get somewhat close here. Okay. So let's try a... I don't know what a radial burn would do here. I'm actually interested to see. A radial burn could get us kind of close. What if we burned like 40 meters per second radial? Yeah, that gets us kind of close here. Kind of. And then 3 meters per second prograde. What if it was 20 meters per second radial and 20 meters per second prograde? That gets us reasonably close. 43 meters per second is not enough. Like, the moment we hit the floating point error, I knew that this would be not going to work. We could maybe do some getting out and push shenanigans at the apoapsis up here to push this down. That is something we could theoretically do. And it might be what we have to do. Now, what if this maneuver, instead of burning like this, was just pure prograde? 40, not 4 meters per second. Although 4 meters per second gets us surprisingly close. But no, what if this was 43 meters per second? Okay, so how much DV do we actually need here to get to where we want? Which is like 50 kilometers. Yeah, that's going to take a lot of aero brake passes, but... yeah, so this is going to take somewhere around 190 meters per second, which still would have been really tight, right? So what about other options? What if we burned just like 1 meter per second here? And then, once we are at this apoapsis, what if we then burned the rest of this negative 42? Okay, that wouldn't get us there. I don't think anything is going to get us there, in all honesty. I think that we just have too little DV, and that was always going to be a risk here. We can work on the second stage, we can make a few tweaks, but ultimately, this would overall take slightly more DV, and that's to be expected, in all honesty. So this maneuver here, what is going on here? I'm just going to go ahead and delete this maneuver. Let's create a new one. And prograde burns are definitely the way to go over here. But what about a retrograde burn over here? Yeah, that's not going to be a thing. Negative 43. Yeah, retrograde burns are, of course, not going to get us there. I was hoping... no, that's never going to work. That's literally never going to work. I don't know why I even thought of it. A prograde burn, though, we could burn it down to 1.1 in terms of millions. So it looks like a prograde burn at the periapsis is exactly what we want to do. Right there. Okay, that's fine. This is a node in T-minus 1 minute, so we may as well go ahead and burn this, and we'll do some getting out and push attempts. I don't necessarily think that that's going to be our best bet, but we'll try it before we do a rescue mission. We may have to. This was always a risk, but that floating point error, oof. Like, I think we could have made it back if we hadn't have had the floating point error. So we're going to want to burn this at T-minus 1.5 seconds, and this is, of course, our final burn. Just warp forward a little bit more here. And we will burn this right about now. I burned that retrograde like a moron. Okay. So we'll have to get a rescue mission up here. Why did I do that? Oh, man. I'm so dumb. We needed to be prograde, and I burned retrograde. It might be easier to catch around the moon, though. Now that I think about it, yeah, I think this is easier. So let's go ahead and hop back to the Space Center, and let's work on a rescue mission, then. It was probably always going to be a rescue mission, and I think it'll be a little easier to catch them around the moon. The real question is, do we want to come in retrograde? that does require a lot more DV. I want to take a look in our VAB here, and we're going to open up the Free India Mark 6. We're going to make a variant of this. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to double the fuel up here, or somewhat double it. We're going to go from a T400 to a T800 up here. This will cause potentially some thrust to weight issues down here. I'm not too concerned about it. What I am going to do, though, is I'm going to remove the service bay and the Science Junior up here. We are going to want those photovoltaic panels, though. So we're going to place those up here. And then we'll remove that, and all we're going to put in is a... where is it? A crew cabin. This can hold 2 crew. We need to rescue 3 total. So in terms of the crew that we're going to have in this, we're not going to be bringing Bill. We're going to bring Gilly and Valentina. We're bringing Gilly for XP and Valentina to actually drive. And then we have 3 empty seats. Okay. So in theory, this is what we're going to be bringing for our rescue mission. This will have more DV, although I'm a little bit concerned about our thrust to weight down here. Perhaps we should... we're 1.25. Perhaps we should move a little bit of fuel out of the center core. What does it look like in terms of thrust to weight without the center core? 0.85, but what if we are in atmospheric flight? Let's see here. Our thrust to weight, is that in here? Thrust to weight ratio max in atmospheric flight is apparently 0.85. This is at sea level. Oh, altitude. Yeah, our altitude will be, I think, high enough that we will have some thrust to weight on that. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove some fuel from this stage. We're going to put this into a T400. We'll reattach these boys. They go... This is not going to be quad coupled. We're going to do something like this. They're going to stick down because this is a shorter stage now. And we are going to stick on T200s out here. So it's exactly the same amount of fuel. We're just moving the fuel out to... Where's the T200s? I feel certain that there are T200s. Do we have to do T100s? No, it's right here. I'm a moron. We already knew that based on my maneuvering. But, there we go. That did not go well. We'll try that again. Boom. There we go. Okay, we'll make sure that this is in its own stage, like so. These guys combine. Excellent. So it's literally the same thrust to weight, the same amount of fuel. We've just moved the fuel out of the center tank into the side tanks. Which of course means that our thrust to weight, when we switch over to this, will be much higher, despite the fact that we have additional fuel in here. Now I am going to put these on up here, like so. We're not looking for any science. This is a rescue craft, so we should probably rename this to something else. And let's call this maybe... What do I want to call this? We'll call this the... Oh, caps lock is on. We'll call this the Calaturis Mark 1. And I'm going to designate that this is a rescue craft. There we go. Okay, so this should have a lot more DV for maneuvering in orbital space. We'll have to determine if we want to go in retrograde or not based on how much DV we have and our DV differential that'll require. It'll be quite a... Actually, not as much as you might think if we do it correctly. We're going to go ahead and launch here, and we're going to have to do a rendezvous, and it's going to be a whole thing. Wonderful. I mean, it was probably always going to be a rescue mission, right? Do I have a heat shield on this? I need to check. We've got ourselves a decoupler, and are you a heat shield? Yes. Okay, let's double check our staging. Okay, so that decouples, and then that stage fires. That decouples. Yeah, that's our re-entry. Sounds good. Okay. Well, let's go do some rescuing, shall we? Off we go. So in theory, this should be quite a lot more Delta V. I don't think we're going to go in retrograde. We're just going to do this the old-fashioned way. And that'll be okay. Going in retrograde is all well and good when you've got 1 million DV to spare, but I'm not too interested in that right now. So up we go. We are moving at 100 meters per second right now. Let's go ahead and start wiggling our way over into a bit of a turn here, and let's switch over to orbital mode. Excellent. And we'll just hold about here. Actually, I didn't check the aerodynamics on this thing, did I? Well, it seems to be very stable, so that's good. We're moving at a pretty good clip here. We are currently at a 1.96 thrust-to-weight ratio, and as we burn this fuel off, it's getting better and better. We don't have a KER on this. Yeah, that is definitely a thing that we do not have. Let's just make our way over towards the orbit point for right now, and we'll just have to look at our apoapsis the old-fashioned way. 16 kilometers for right now. Okay. We'll just sit here. We've still got another 8 seconds of burn left in our boosters. We're definitely getting some good altitude out of that. 3, 2, 1, boom. There we go. And 1.22 thrust to weight. I like it. Okay, so our apoapsis is still on its way up. And that's fine. We are completely okay with this. Our thrust is, of course, still increasing, and we're a little bit close to our apoapsis still for me to be comfortable with moving over to the prograde marker. We are still pushing out the timer here, so that's good. 50K is our current altitude, so I am actually going to make the way over to the prograde marker at this point. Just slowly heading over there before we tell Valentina to take the reins, which we're doing now. You got that, Valentina. I'm sure. I'm sure she's got that. Okay, so our apoapsis is now in space. That is fantastic. We'll push that up to about 80 kilometers. 8, 9, good. We'll coast from here, and we'll just get ourselves a maneuver. Boom, something along the lines of... This will be fine. Okay. And of course, we are currently coasting until space. Note in T-minus 1 minute. This is apparently a 4-minute burn, but that's not actually going to be accurate. We're going to want to start doing this burn quite soon. No, Valentina, stop trying to go prograde on me. Thank you. We'll have accurate numbers once we hit space. There we go. Much better. 2 minutes, 28 seconds, which means we should have already started the burn. Okay. Off we go. Now that we are in space, let's get ourselves some horizontal velocity. And we have about 2 kilometers per second over here, which is good. We are going to use about 1 of that in just circularizing. Definitely a little bit slow on that circularization. I feel like our first stage is still underpowered. We may want to go up to tri-boosters. Maybe we abort this flight. We'll see what our remaining DV is after we're circularized here. Our first stage is still underpowered, but I feel like our second stage is pretty good for it at this point. The real question is, how much DV do we have left over here? And it's going to be about 1100. Which, considering we have to do the rendezvous, I don't think that's quite enough. Yeah, I don't think that's quite enough. We'll see. Maybe we have to do another rescue mission, but... yeah, I think we may actually have to go up to tri-boosters here. I'm not used to having to do that. That's definitely different. No doubt about that one. This is not the most efficient descent profile, and I think I'm actually going to cut the engines here pretty soon, and we're just going to bring this right on back. I probably should have tested this in a simulated environment, but I did not. And so, we're going to come right on back. Let's go ahead and advance until we hit the atmosphere, and we're going to try a different technique here. As in, we're going to make our first stage quite a lot more powerful so that we can actually get there. That'll be helpful. We're going to go to either tri or quad detachable boosters, I think. For now, though, let's go ahead and physics warp as we approach the surface. And we'll begin a re-entry burn. We've got plenty of fuel for that. No heating effects yet. There we go. Let's begin our re-entry burn, and we'll bring this right on back down. No real concerns here in terms of cost, of course, but it is some time wasted. There's no doubt about that. However, I think it's fine. We will just up our number of side boosters, our strap-on boosters, and we won't have a problem. It's just that our first stage is still a little underpowered for lifting this. So, I'm wondering if we burn off this entire amount of fuel? We're already moving pretty slowly here. We'll see. We've still got 1 kilometer per second left in here, of course. But I mean, all things considered, this was a reasonable test flight. We now know that this has 2000 DV once we're in orbit, so that should be more than enough, assuming we make it into orbit on a single stage. A third booster, I think, definitely gets us that. So overall, I'm pretty content with this. And we will definitely go and rescue them quite soon. However, it is pretty much time to put a cut in here. This is a super safe descent at this point. I'm going to move this up here. We'll see about recovering that engine. And I'll just go ahead and do the outro while we are finishing this up. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and I'll see you all next time when we actually go and rescue our Kerbonauts. Okay, let's just finish this. Should be no problem. We'll just detach, or not detach the main, we'll launch the main. There we go. And the main deploys, and we're moving at about 13 meters per second. This is not bad at all. We will continue descending a little bit here. I should probably toss a KER on here too while we're at it. And we're still 100 meters up. There we go. And let's just go ahead and burn this to decelerate a little bit. It's not much deceleration, but it's all good. Okay. So yeah, we will make a couple of alterations to this, and then go on our rescue mission. See you all next time.